The heavy ticking of the grandfather clock filled the suffocating silence of the Vance estate study. Its golden pendulum swung back and forth, a cruel reminder of how time was running out for Maya Robinson. She sat at the grand oak table, her trembling fingers tracing the edges of the ivory divorce papers in front of her. Her chest tightened as she blinked away tears, her vision blurry. "Sign it." The voice was cold, sharp as glass. Across from her sat Isabella Vance, the matriarch of the powerful Vance family. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. The older woman's perfectly quartered silver hair and pristine black dress gave her an air of untouchable authority. Pearls gleamed at her throat, but there was no softness in her expression, only disdain. "You've embarrassed this family long enough," Isabella said, her voice calm yet dripping venom. "It's time you leave quietly with whatever dignity you still have." Maya's heart pounded so loudly she could hardly hear. 2 years ago, Maya had been swept off her feet by Leo Vance, the charming, ambitious heir to the Vance fortune. He'd been different then, warm, loving, rebellious enough to stand against his family's elitism, or so she thought. When Leo brought Maya, a black woman from a modest background, into the Vance mansion for the first time, she felt the sting of Isabella's icy smile. "A woman like you could never understand our world," Isabella had told her privately that night, but Maya had tried. She endured the whispers at society parties, the condescending remarks about her appearance, her accent, her lack of sophistication. She loved Leo enough to stay until now. Leo. Maya's voice cracked as she turned to her husband, hoping, pleading for some sign of the man she married. He stood near the tall window, his hands in his pockets, his tailored suit immaculate, but his face was cold, his jaw set hard. "Don't look at me like that, Maya," he said sharply. "You've made this harder than it needed to be." Her breath caught in her throat. "Harder? I gave up everything for you. My friends, my career, my family. I thought we were building a life together." Leo scoffed. "A life together, or a life you clung to because you thought marrying me would solve all your problems?" The words hit like a slap. Isabella leaned forward, her voice low and cutting. "You were never right for him, Maya. You don't belong in this family, in this world. Sign the papers, and we'll make sure you're compensated enough to start over somewhere far from here." Maya stared down at the pen in her hand. Her mind raced. "If I sign this, I lose everything. The man I love, the future I dreamed of. But if I don't..." She looked up at Leo one last time. "Do you really want this?" His eyes hardened. "You're not the woman I thought you were. Maybe my mother was right all along." Maya's tears fell freely now, leaving dark stains on her cream-colored blouse. Her hands shook violently as she picked up the pen. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. "They want to erase me like I was nothing, like I never mattered." But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "You'll show them one day." With a final breath, she signed her name. Isabella smiled faintly, satisfied. "Good girl. Now gather your things. Someone will escort you out." Maya stood slowly, her knees weak. Her eyes lingered on Leo, silently, begging him to stop her, to say something, anything. But he turned away. That was the last thing she saw before leaving the Vance estate. The man she loved, staring out the window, indifferent to her pain. What they didn't know, as Maya stepped into the cold night air, clutching her coat around her, she didn't know how she'd survive. But what the Vances didn't know was that Maya's quiet strength came from more than just her love for Leo. She came from a legacy of resilience, and soon she would discover a secret about her own family, a secret that would turn Vance's world upside down. 2 years. That's how long it had been since Maya walked out of the Vance estate, clutching her coat around her trembling frame, her signature still wet on the divorce papers that tore her world apart. 2 years later, Isabella Vance smirked across a polished oak table and told her she wasn't good enough. 2 years after Leo, her husband, the man she once believed loved her, turned his back on her. His cold indifference cut deeper than any words. But the woman approaching the estate gates today wasn't the same Maya. This Maya didn't flinch. She didn't bow her head. She didn't plead for love or acceptance. This Maya had built herself anew, and she wasn't here to beg. The Vance family had seen better days. Their investments had crumbled under a series of bad deals. The once glorious Vance name, synonymous with wealth and power, was now whispered in boardrooms as a cautionary tale. Leo sat at the head of the conference table, his suit impeccable, but his eyes hollow. Isabella sat beside him, her pearls as flawless as ever, though her grip on her teacup was tight. "We need this acquisition," Isabella said, her voice sharp with urgency. "If Sterling Holdings doesn't sign off on this partnership, the Vance legacy is finished." Leo exhaled slowly. "They'll come. They have to." The double doors opened. A hush fell over the room as a woman stepped inside, her heels clicking against the marble floor. It was Maya, but not the Maya they remembered. Gone was the trembling, tearful young woman in a wrinkled blouse. This Maya wore a tailored cream suit that hugged her frame like armor. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, and diamond studs glinted in her ears. She carried herself with the effortless grace of someone who owned every room she walked into. Behind her strode a tall man with silver hair and a presence that seemed to bend the air around him. His bespoke suit whispered wealth in every stitch. Isabella's eyes widened. Marcus Sterling. The man gave her a polite but distant nod. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Vance." Leo's face went pale. "You're her father?" "Yes," Marcus said calmly. "I'm Maya's father. I thought it was time we had a conversation." Isabella's voice sharpened. "Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? Why let your daughter marry into this family without telling us who you were?" Maya stepped forward, her voice even. "Because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for what I had. But instead of accepting me, you judged me, mocked me, drove me out." Her eyes locked on Leo, who couldn't meet her gaze. "And you," she said softly, her voice trembling, not with weakness, but with restrained fury. "You stood there and let them humiliate me. You believed I was nothing without you. But the truth is, you were nothing without me." Leo flinched. Marcus pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. "I'm buying out your company's debt, effective immediately. Sterling Holdings owns controlling interest in Vance Industries." Isabella's mouth fell open. You can't." "Oh, I can," Marcus interrupted smoothly, "and I will. But don't worry, we'll keep you on as advisors." Maya tilted her head slightly, her calm gaze sweeping over her ex-mother-in-law and ex-husband. "Consider it my way of ensuring no one else suffers the way I did here." As the reality sank in, Leo stood abruptly. "Maya, wait. I was wrong. I let my mother influence me. I never stopped loving you." Maya's lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. "Love isn't silent when the world is tearing you apart, Leo. Love doesn't stand by and watch you drown." His voice cracked. "Please give me another chance." Maya shook her head. "I gave you all the chances in the world, and you taught me that sometimes love isn't enough." Isabella's voice was a harsh whisper now. "You think you're better than us because of your father's money?" Maya met her gaze with unflinching, calm number. "I'm better because I learned to value people, not their wealth, not their status, but their hearts, something you never understood." Maya turned to leave, her heels clicking against the floor like the closing of a chapter. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back one last time. "Thank you," she said softly. Leo frowned. "For what?" "For teaching me how strong I really am." That evening, Maya sat on the balcony of her father's estate overlooking the city skyline. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from the board of Sterling Holdings. "Congratulations, Maya Robinson. As of today, you are officially CEO." She smiled, her tears this time warm and proud. Maya had lost everything once, but she'd rebuilt herself. Not as a Vance, not as someone's wife, but as her own woman, and she would never let anyone take that from her again.